It's Friday, time for another history update. As you can probably already tell, I'm not on campus. I am down on the Monroe County Courthouse Square, down on the southeast corner of the Monroe County Courthouse Square, outside the Alexander Memorial. That's the, or next to the Alexander Memorial. That's the big thing back here behind me that you can see going up there. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it and how it relates to IU history. So Captain Williamson Martin Alexander was a captain in the Civil War. He had grown up here in Bloomington and lived in the area. And after he served in the war, and after the war he came back. He was the county sheriff, and he was a blacksmith, and he did a number of things around town, and was real involved in a number of organizations, including the Knights of Pythias, or Pythias. That's the KP Hall that's back over here. And he wound up getting married twice, but had one daughter who died young, and ended up not outliving all of his children and his spouses. And so therefore he decided to leave his money to be built towards a monument to the soldiers and sailors of all wars from Monroe County. And in the 1920s, this was built. Now, interesting story. So he's an Alexander, which means he's part of that founding families of IU. His parents are actually buried in Dunn Cemetery out next to the Union, although he was buried out here in town. And I mentioned he didn't have any kids, but he had a stepson and a stepdaughter that he treated as his kids, or a stepson and his wife that he treated as his kids, and they had a child. And that child came to IU in the 1920s and actually died as a freshman at IU in the 1920s. So he had no descendants, and so hence he gave this money. So in the late 1920s, we built this monument, and it's carved. I'm gonna walk around it a little bit so you can see some of it here, because one of the challenges of it is that it's been damaged, and we're not entirely sure why. There's two local mythologies as to why it was damaged. You can see some of the work here, and you can tell that this is a historically inaccurate Abraham Lincoln holding a flag, standing with a soldier and sailor thing. That's not a real moment, but it's a little bit easier to see the damage when you look at the flat panels on the sides, and you can see the pock marks and the damage here. And then like this cavalry charge back here is, you know, almost unable to be seen. And then like this back panel is in really bad shape. And so there's a restoration committee that I'm on right now that's working on restoring this monument and getting grants and putting the work together. It's very expensive to restore a big stone monument like this and do the work. And you'll notice this panel over here has two little holes in it. That's actually where we had to remove that panel to get inside of it in order to figure out what was structurally holding it up and how it was working. And you can see here how damaged this panel is. Now, why are these panels damaged? Well, that's a little bit of local folklore. There's two stories that go around, and sometimes a third story that's a mix of those two stories. But some people say that it was damaged during an anti-war protest in the 1960s or 70s, and it was intentionally damaged by somebody spraying an acid sort of material on it, which sort of makes some sense if you notice that most of the damage is not done to the base around the monument. The damage is almost exclusively done to the carved panels, and it's not done higher up. So it seems like it was intentional, whatever happened. And you can really see the striation marks, I think that's the right word, on the side right here where it's been cut in. So that's one story. The other story is that in the early 1980s or before, there was an attempt to clean the monument, and they used inappropriate chemicals to clean the monument. Now, with that story, the challenge is like, how come it only damaged these parts of it and not the higher up parts or the lower parts? So we're not entirely sure, but it doesn't matter. We're working on trying to get it restored, and that's a project that's underway, and we're raising funds, and we're trying to make the effort to get it all done. Now, Williamson Martin Alexander never attended IU, but his family is very IU connected, and his his grandson, in his mind, attended IU, and so it's got some IU history that's connected with it. If you want to get a close-up look at this, I highly suggest you come next Friday to when they light up the lights here on the Courthouse Square in downtown. That'll be the Friday after Thanksgiving. They do that every year. It's a great event down here, and there'll be a number of things that are happening that evening. So it's a good time to come down here to watch that happen. So hopefully I'll see you here, and otherwise that's your briefing for today, and I'll see you next week.